Welcome in, everybody, to another edition of the Geaux247 podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Sonny Ship. Sonny, how are you doing today?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm doing great. Doing better than LSU. That's as much as I can say here. It's nice weather in Baton Rouge, at least.
Hey, man, it's beautiful weather. We're one game closer to the end of the football season to where we can shift our focus solely to basketball. But the really good news is we have our last soccer tournament this weekend. So
There you go.
Papa Ship's about to have a 3-month layoff from having to go sit out at soccer practice and gymnastic practices 4 nights a week.
Yeah, that is a relief. Even though it's gonna start getting colder here too, nothing compares to having to watch some LSU football for a few more weeks here. So we're gonna talk about LSU Alabama a bit, give y'all what y'all need to know about that going into it. Maybe for those of y'all looking at the spread potentially, maybe we'll give our thoughts on that, and then we're gonna talk some basketball. LSU basketball tips off November 9th. UL Monroe at home. Just got back yesterday. Talked to Will Wade and Xavier Pinson and Darius Days and them, and they insist they can play defense now, Sonny. So we'll have to get into that later on.
Yeah, that's going to be that was probably, I think, if you go back and if you look at the things that that Tiger fans and especially those on the site complained about last year with Will Wade's crew. That was it. It was the it was the defensive end of the court, and then some of the shot preference, some of the shot taking that you saw, especially from Cam Thomas. But hey, we'll get to basketball. But man, aren't you glad you're not making that trip to Tuscaloosa this weekend?
Yeah, I am not making the trip to Tuscaloosa. It's about a 5-hour drive from here roughly.
Yeah, from there about 5.5 because
Yeah.
it's about 4.5 for me.
See.
Uh,
So you could make it. You could make the trip.
yeah. I could also go get a colonoscopy this weekend too, for the hell of it. But I think I'm gonna pass.
Well, let's take a look at this game. Let's give our thoughts. Obviously Alabama versus LSU in Alabama. Alabama comes in ranked second in the initial playoff rankings, with much to some people's dismay. Some people thought maybe a step or two below, but no matter how you look at it, Alabama controls its own destiny at this point, even with the loss to Texas A&M. They come off of just a drubbing against Tennessee, where Tennessee actually led 14-7 early on. Watched that game, and then Alabama's defense kind of settled in. Alabama's offense just is as potent as I don't think it's obviously it's not as potent as last year's unit, but still Bryce Young, John Mechie, just a unit that Evan Neal on the offensive line, a unit that's gonna give a depleted LSU team plenty of problems, and we haven't even talked about the injuries because I don't think there's not much worth in going through all the injuries. It's just basically everybody's injured. Sage Ryan is out for this game. Major Burns gonna be out again. Cordell Flott is gonna be out along with, as we know, Eli Ricks and Derek Stingley in the secondary. So depleted secondary. Michael Baskerville is now questionable to maybe even doubtful. Ogeron talked about that on his Wednesday radio show. So that's another hit. Might be seeing some Mike Jones, might be seeing some Greg Penn. Yeah, it's a depleted defense. What do you see from Alabama's offense?
Well, and to kind of touch on that, what you were talking about with the injuries, when I went through and I did our weekly piece where we look at the projected starters for LSU and then the opponent, and then to see where they were ranked in recruiting. If LSU had their players, and I preface that by saying, you've got Keishon Butte, Derek Stingley, John Emery, and Eli Rick. So that's 4 5-stars right there that you take out of the equation. On the other, then you've got Ali Gay, Major Burns, Sage Ryan, Cordell Flott. You go down the
Andre
list.
Anthony.
Andre Anthony, and you're almost down a dozen starters from what you would have started. From actually, you toss in Jared Small for the linebacker, and you're really done. Almost 13 guys from the starting 22 that you would have liked to have had against UCLA if everybody was healthy.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's just a staggering amount. That's a staggering amount of guys to not have at your disposal when you go up to play. Oh, and by the way, one of the best teams in the country in Alabama, who is still pretty angry about what happened in 2019 when LSU went up there and won. Of course, Ed Orgeron shot off his mouth in the locker room. That we know about the viral sayings that he had going about recruiting and roll tide roll and all that. But the players just dancing around, celebrating as they should have. That was a hard earned victory, and they deserve to celebrate.
Yeah.
But when you celebrate on someone's field 2 years later and you make that return trip, you can't expect anything. You can't expect them to welcome you with open arms.
No.
And that's really what I guess what kind of worries me more than anything else this weekend is, last year we saw Alabama. We saw Nick Saban kind of call off the dogs in the fourth quarter. That game could have gotten a lot uglier. And being that this is Ed Orgeron's last trip to Tuscaloosa as the LSU head coach, and what and what he did on his last trip to Tuscaloosa in Bryant-Denny Stadium, you get the sense that that Nick Saban is not going to call off the dogs this weekend.
Doesn't feel like
I get the feeling and I get the sense that Nick Saban is going to use this as a way to make a statement, to send a statement to whoever the next head coach is going to be, to send a statement in recruiting, and just really to send a statement to Ed Orgeron on your way out. And and I guess that's a big reason when I look at that 28.5-point spread. And as high as that is, it makes you wonder if it's a little bit low.
Yeah. Last year was also a 28.5-point spread, and Alabama covered that with ease, 55-17. And because initially, you're right, when you look at 28.5 points, that's a lot of points. Like in an SEC game, unless if it's Vanderbilt's in it, I mean, you're looking at that like, okay, that's a hell of a lot of points. But then I look back at last year. I remember watching last year's game. It's just, and this year's LSU team is obviously even more depleted than it was last year. And so I don't see on either end how they find success. Alabama's offense, just real quick, is just so impressive with its versatility. And Texas A&M's defense is obviously one of the better ones in the SEC. We know that. And then that's what it took to kind of slow them down to a degree. And even then, it took A&M's offense to have an otherworldly performance at quarterback especially. So I don't see the talent level LSU has on that side of the ball that's healthy to compare to what A&M did or even what Florida did. Part of me wants to say, obviously this Alabama team's not as good as it was the past couple years, but still it's just a unit littered with NFL talent, first, second round picks. And if LSU had their talent, I think this could be a, 2-touchdown game instead of a 5-touchdown game. Like it's just such a big difference, even though it sucks to see. It really does. But that's kind of a microcosm of the season, right? You've just injuries after injuries and situations just haven't worked out for this LSU team. So now I'm looking at this 28.5-point spread, and I know we're not doing predictions just yet, but I've been trying to be a little more optimistic because, I keep picking LSU to lose. And not that I was ever going to pick them to win, but like picking them to cover, I was like, I could throw them a bone, pick them to cover, maybe like 24 points. I can't see it. I can't see them covering.
Yeah, I'm in the same place. You try to. It almost reminds me of our podcast that we did for the Florida game. Going into that game, I can remember saying, this is one of those times where, you just have to have everything go right. And if you go back and if we look at that Florida game, everything did go right.
Yep.
You had, 4 Florida picks, 4 Florida interceptions. LSU didn't turn the ball over. Penalties were not a problem. That was not an issue. And everything that LSU really needed, they needed to find a running game. And wow, did they ever find a running game? Ty Davis-Price has a career day, off of running that same play over and over and over again that Florida could never adjust to. You get the sense going into this one that even if LSU has everything go right like it did against Florida, that LSU's offense, as depleted as it is, it's not going to be able to score 49 points. Not again. And this Alabama defense is not a world setter by any means. It's given up just under 21 points a game. But that run play that worked so well against Florida, and has even worked a little bit since then, that ain't going to work over and over and over against Alabama. Yeah, that's just not going to happen. Pete Golding and Nick Saban are going to make adjustments, but they've already made adjustments. They've already made adjustments to what they've saw on tape. So now it's a matter of how LSU adjusted from that. And I don't have a whole lot of confidence that the LSU staff is going to come out of the bye week having made a ton of adjustments. I do think that, Ed Orgeron, some people were upset, feeling that he threw his coordinators and his assistant coaches under the bus by saying that they've been too predictable on offense, they've been too predictable on defense, outlining all of the things that they discovered from self-scouting themselves during the bye week. The only problem is that took about 9 weeks too long for LSU staff to figure out, because, myself, yourself, Shay, Billy, there's so many who were saying, okay, what we saw against UCLA was way too predictable, no imagination whatsoever. And, so it's hard for me to go into this one thinking that, the staff is going to come out, going to show a bunch of new wrinkles. I don't have that confidence at all, and which, that turns us to the question, I think, of, what do you, and I'm going to flip the script on you a little bit. Sorry, Coach O, for stealing your punchline there. Flip the script. But going to toss this out there to you and say, okay, if LSU is somehow, we've seen these monumental upsets take place in college football and other sports and stuff. If LSU is going to go to Tuscaloosa and even keep it respectable, what has to happen?
I was gonna ask you actually how many turnovers it would take to keep it like 2 scores. Like, do they have to be like a +4 to keep it?
I'm in that same boat from Florida. +4, +5,
+4 to keep it within 2 scores. I think they're gonna have to do 2 things, and they're kind of coincide. They're gonna have to be able to run the ball on first downs just for a couple yards, just for 4 yards, nothing crazy. Just get to decently manageable situations here. And then the last thing, which again is coincides with that, third downs. Tennessee, I believe, went 2 of 15, and Alabama, I think, converted like 60 or 65%. The disparity of third downs just cannot be that wide. You have to get into third and manageable, and fourth and manageable as well, because you're gonna have to go for it on fourth down a lot, and convert those half of the time to have a chance. You have to keep this chains moving. They're not going to hit explosive plays, I don't believe. Alabama's probably going to be content with them trying to take the underneath stuff and trying to just work some drives and then just put a stranglehold on them whenever they get past
the third down short.
Yeah. So I think it just comes down to those third downs and trying to milk the clock, because if you can sustain a couple drives there, you can take the air out the ball, a couple like just 5-6 minute drives, even if it results in like 10 points in the first half, and you can just kind of do it that way. That's one way I think of keeping it to like 21-10 at halftime, somewhat in the game at that point.
See, without regurgitating what I said against Florida, which I don't think that would even work. I think the only way that I can see them, even having a chance going into the fourth quarter of it being a 2-score, a 2-score game, is Alabama has to suffer a major hit, and you don't wish injuries on anyone. I mean, no matter how much you hate the other team, you have to respect you have to respect the players themselves. But I think it would take, something like Bryce Young getting hurt and going down, kind of like we saw against Ole Miss with Matt Corral. Exactly. When Matt Corral, when he went out briefly, all of a sudden you didn't get, I caught myself saying, okay, if Luke Altmaier is going to be the quarterback from here on out, LSU's got a chance.
Yeah.
You know, and I get the sense, and that's kind of where I am with this one right here. Bryce Young would have to go down early and not be able to return to where you force Alabama to have to do something they haven't had to do all year. You know, you force them, you force someone else to have to win a game for them, because Brian Robinson Jr. is a very good running back. Third, I think he's third in the SEC in rushing right now. Super hard physical runner. You know, they can lean on him. They're going to be able to lean on him. But I think if if the only way I could see LSU being able to do what we are kind of reading into our crystal ball a little bit is they have to do it against the backup quarterback.
Yeah.
I just think that even if Bryce Young is off, even if Bryce Young has the worst game that he has had all year, then you still have that Bryce Young factor that Brian Robinson Jr. is now all of a sudden not putting everything on his shoulders.
Yeah.
He might have to feel like he has to step it up, but he's not feeling like he would have to carry the team, as opposed to you bring in the backup quarterback and you want everyone else to feel like they have to do it instead of him.
All right, I'm looking at, before we get to our predictions real quick, I'm looking at some of the lines and stuff. The point total for Alabama this game is 46.5. Do you think that's too low, too high, or just right?
I think it's too low.
That Vegas agrees with you. You're on the money. The over is minus 135.
Okay.
So that's pretty substantial. Like, yeah, they think it's going to be over.
Yeah.
So, all right. Are you ready to throw out some numbers?
Oh man, yeah. And I actually got Shay. I actually got Shay and Billy's predictions ahead of time and stuff too, so we can go ahead.
Oh,
I have to give Shay credit, man, because Shay actually stole my predictions, so I had to tone mine down a little bit.
You were getting on us last week.
I know, man. I know. So now I've got to reevaluate my. I was like, okay, we can't. We're gonna look like Twinkies. We can't.
You were getting on us last week.
Yeah, I know.
That's funny.
So,
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say Shay went 52-13, and that's kind of where I was leaning. That's where I was leaning. Billy went 49-20, Bama, and it's just it's. I really just can't see the offense going in there and being able to consistently move the chains like you alluded to, and stay out of third and long. And if they get in third and long too much, I think Max Johnson. I think that the effects of the cumulative effects from the season really has him at a point right now to where he gets down on himself pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do that against Alabama. If you start second guessing yourself, or you start getting to the point to where you're kind of walking on eggshells, you might as well just go ahead and hang it up right there, And so, that's what that's what worries me. That's what worries me is him being able to go in there. We saw him last year against Florida. We saw him against Ole Miss, of be able to kind of move the chains and move the team and move the offense and score some points. I just think that with so many weapons out, with the offensive line now down another starter, with Anthony Bradford not being, he's not going to be in the lineup. So you add him to the equation too of an already struggling offensive line. And I just think that Alabama's defense is going to feast on LSU's offense. So since I can't pick 52-13 like Shay did, I'm not going to go 59-13. So I'm going to drop it down to 45-13.
Ooh, 45.
Still has them covered. That's a 32 point.
Yeah, they still cover.
Yeah, still covers, but it's just.
I'm gonna go with a Cade York game. I think
Yeah.
Cade York gets his field goals in, somehow. I'm gonna go 58-16. 58-16. Yeah, that's 3 field goals for LSU.
42-point margin.
Get Cade York going. Yeah, 42. That's insane. I agree. Everything you said, I agree. We don't need to spend any more time on it. But yeah, that's on Saturday at 6 o'clock on ESPN with I believe what Kirk Herbstreit is doing it with
Yeah,
Fowler.
Kirk and Fowler and yeah.
There you
So
go.
LSU gets the good game,
Got
the
the
good
big
game.
boys.
Now, something good we get to talk about. How about some basketball, man?
Let's
Only a
talk some
few
basketball.
days away.
I can't believe it.
Huh?
It's already here. It feels great. The weather's getting a little colder. It's beautiful. You can
You're going to
start watching
spend that
basketball.
first Tuesday probably in the PMAC all day, huh?
Right?
I know you're going to be there having breakfast with Kim Mulkey and her crew.
Got
They
the
play at 11. By the time you get done writing that gamer, it'll be, that'll put you at about 3 o'clock.
right.
Go to
Take a nap.
walk-ons, grab you a burger or something, head right back to the PMAC.
Exactly. That's gonna be my whole day. I can't
Yeah.
wait.
Oh, I know you're going to be
And
excited.
both teams are really exciting. The women also received votes in the poll that just came out. I think it was the AP poll. I don't remember which poll it was, but so both teams will be exciting. But looking at the men specifically, we were able to talk to them yesterday, and like I said at the beginning of this podcast, it was kind of a running joke the whole time because Darius Days and everybody was like, "Yeah, we can play defense now," and everybody in the room was like, "Can you really play defense?" And they were laughing. Like Darius was like, "Yeah, we're actually trying, and there's actual emphasis this year." That's kind of what he said. So there is, at the very least, a little bit of concerted effort going into that. Whether it works or not, I have no idea. But they are trying on defense. And so, what do you think that means for this team?
Well, I think I think I think that this is a type of team to where they can play good defense, and they can at least put forth, a lot more effort than they did last year at times, because that was probably the biggest complaint, was just questioning the effort on the defensive end of the floor. When they wanted to play defense, they would play pretty good defense. It was just getting them to do it with any sense of consistency whatsoever. But I think this team, you've got some size now. Last year, Darius Days was the size, along with Trendon Watford. This year, you've got Efton Reed, you've got Tyree Eason, you've got Darius Days, you've got some guys, you've got some rim protectors. You've got some guys that are going to force opponents to second guess themselves when they get close to the rim, and so that right there, along with Monty Wilkinson, Eric Gaines, some guys like that, Xavier Pinson. I just think that I think that they're gonna be a little more better equipped to play defense this year, and they're not going to be able to just rely on Cam Thomas going out and expecting him to score 25, 26 points a game like he did last year. This year, they're going to have to do some things to where they can't just run up and down the floor with every opponent. Last year was, let's just outscore everybody. Well, I think this year you have to have a different approach, because I don't think this team can just go out and outscore everyone.
Yeah, especially with Adam Miller out. With Adam Miller out,
Yeah, that's a
it
big missing piece.
just makes a big difference. I thought he could have led this team in scoring this year, and so obviously with him out, it changes the dynamic of the offensive bit. I think, like you said, I think it added this to the sense of urgency to this team that I kind of felt yesterday. With Wade, it's kind of been like, all right, now we actually have to play defense. And not that he didn't want to play defense in the past, but now it's like you don't have a choice. If you want to win games, you have to at least stop somebody. Last year, according to KenPom, they were the 124th ranked defense in the country, and that's just not going to get it done. That's at all. You have to be, I think they got to be top 80, which still isn't like the greatest thing ever, but it's at least serviceable, right? Last year, I think they were 9th in the conference in defense, according to KenPom. Got to be top 6. Got to be top 6, I think, because they were first in offense in the SEC last year. You're probably not going to be first this year. So instead of it being 1st and 9th, which it was last year, it's going to have to be something like 4 and 5, or 4 and 6, or somewhere around there. So I'm interested to see how that plays out because, like you said, we haven't really seen that before on the defense side of the ball. But I think Tari Eason is a big piece. I think Xavier Pinson brings some maturity on the defense side of the ball, and Brandon Murray, freshman, I think he's going to start at one of the guard positions. I think he's going to play a big role defensively as well. They have some bigger bodies, this year. Cam Thomas, while he was not small, he wasn't a great defender and he wasn't an overly big dude. Javonte Smart, kind of similar type player. This year, I think while Pinson's not big, but he's quick. He's an active defender. Brandon Murray, Imwani Wilkinson, Darius Days, Tari Eason, Efton Reed at the 5. I think it just makes a big, big difference for this team on both ends, but especially a defense.
We know about the different lineup variations they can go with. They can go more athletic. They can go 3 guards. They could go to where you even put Darius Days out at the 3 and go bigger with Tari Eason.
Yeah.
And Efton Reed. What is, we know that we're going to see both variations. Which lineup do you think, looking at it, just, looking into your crystal ball, which lineup do you think is going to is going to present the most problems for other offenses? Not other offenses, but just other teams in general.
Yeah, you're asking between the non-starter lineups, like the small.
Between okay. See, I think Will Wade, he could go Xavier Pinson, Brandon Murray, Wani Wilkinson as your 3 guards, Darius Days at the 4, Efton Reed at the 5.
Yeah.
I also think if you want to go with if you wanted to, you could also go Xavier Pinson and Brandon Murray, Darius Days, Tari Eason, and Efton Reed.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I think there's some different variations that you can throw out there. And I know a lot of people are excited about the 3-guard offense, but with Darius Days losing some weight, with improving his agility, continuing to work on his outside shot, I kind of, that's the one that I'm kind of anxious to see. And I want to see Tari Eason and Efton Reed with Darius Days, where you can just put him on the outside to let him shoot. But then you can always bring him in to, defensively, that could limit you from a defensive standpoint, because now you have Darius Days having to cover a 3. I think it just depends on what the other team presents. But I really like what that kind of lineup could present.
No, I think they're going to try. I think they're going to use it at some point. Well, Wade kind of said, I asked him about front court versatility yesterday, and he said that as one of his first sentences, he was like, we're trying to find a way to play all 3 at the same time. I think he's hesitant because those are really his only 3 bigs. So, if you have them all on the court at the same time, and let's say one gets in foul trouble or something like that, you can't really rotate them the same. But I do think they're going to play at the same time at some point in this non-conference season. We'll have to see how that works offensively, but I agree. I think Darius Days can become more like a wing in a sense than he was last year, obviously playing like a 5 most of the time. I think Eric Gaines is going to be interesting because we know Wade likes to play 2 point guard lineups as well. He's not afraid of doing that in the past. So will he play Gaines with Pinson at all? He didn't have much of a bench last year, so how is he going to handle having 2 or 3 guys on the bench he can trust? Alex Fudge is another interesting name. I think he's the 8th man right now on this roster, so he's kind of like that 3/4 type guy they can throw in there that's athletic. There's just a lot of question marks I have for as far as rotations go, but one thing is for sure, I think they have a really high floor in a sense, because I think they're just talented enough and they're disciplined enough to put together solid runs. And we heard that they played well against Baylor. I mean, obviously it was a scrimmage. I think Baylor was down a player or 2, but still, you go and play a good game against Baylor, and I'm more inclined to trust you to a degree. And they beat Nicholls State with their bench, which Nicholls State isn't a great team, but they're not a bad, awful team. So I'm really interested in that. I'm interested to see if they're going to have more ball movement, more motion. How you mentioned the shot selection last year. You don't have Cam Thomas anymore, who is just a superstar scorer. So where are those points going to come from? I think it's going to have to be Efton Reed in the post a little bit more. So
who's going to lead them in scoring?
That's a tough question. That is the one. I want to say Darius Days.
Yeah, that's who I would pick too.
I think Darius Days. I think Efton Reed's going to be close, though. I think they need Efton Reed to score the ball. Give it to him in the post and force double teams, force help, kind of play through that to a degree. I think Pinson will be up there as well. Those are the 3. I think all of them are obviously going to be need to be over like 13, 14.
How deep you think they go to start to by I don't know, let's say like around December when the non-conference schedule picks up a little bit? How deep you think they'd like to be able to go?
I think 8. I think
8?
Fudge is the fringe guy. Eight's the Gaines is gonna play, obviously, and Easton's gonna play, obviously. So you got 7 dudes that you trust. And
Yeah.
that's a big strength of this team. Whereas last year you had 4 guys you could trust. This year I think they have 7 guys they can actually trust. And I need to see the Gaines improvement, but everything I've heard is it's real. So I'll trust that for now, but Gaines still has to prove it to me. But Alex Fudge is that 8th guy that I think Wade wants to get in there, 8 to 10 minutes a game, spots, just steal some minutes and use his athleticism out there. So that's what I'm interested in. What aspect of this team are you most interested in seeing?
Man, I think like you alluded to earlier, does it, and not necessarily, are they better defensively, but just play with effort.
Mm-hmm.
Play with effort. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see guys, just standing around and just watching people shoot like you just saw way too much of last year. And when I say that, I think from an effort standpoint that it was really, really lacking
Mm-hmm.
in some games. And so I just want to see that. I want to see guys just go out and just give it everything that they have, regardless of who they're playing. And I think if they can, if the starting 5 can go out and if the starting 5 can do that, then anyone who comes up off the bench is going to feel like they have to do that same thing. So now all of a sudden, you go from having, 2, 3, 4 guys to give an effort to where, you've got 8 or 9.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where, to me, that's where when you see the Kentuckys, the Dukes, the schools who lose a lot of players and just reload and they don't really miss a step. I think that's a lot. Obviously, recruiting and having high level talent is big and stuff. But I think when you get those guys to come in and to play with that kind of effort, from the start, I think that that's what makes a lot of those teams tick.
Yeah. It'll be interesting because the non-conference slate has some decent teams on it, but it's not obviously loaded with P5 or high major
Yeah,
quality teams.
the early portion. Uh,
I
my
think
son, my son was looking at the schedule the other day, and he goes, "Man, LSU's schedule sucks to start the season." I was like, "Son, first of all, don't say that word. Second of all, yes, it really does. The first 5 games are horrible."
ULM, Liberty, McNeese, Texas State, having seen and knowing Texas State is going to be a really good team in its conference and like might make the tournament as like a 15 seed or something like that. But that's not obviously a high major team. But Texas State's the one out of that group. I'm like, okay, that's a decent team.
Yeah.
Belmont's a solid team usually. Then you get in that Emerald Classic with Penn State and then Oregon State or Wake Forest. Oregon State obviously had a good run last year. Wake Forest is a solid team. Then you have Ohio made the tournament last year. Georgia Tech's all right. Louisiana Tech towards the end. But other than that, you got like Lipscomb, Northwestern State, McNeese, Liberty, ULM. And those are
The
games that I
December
just
schedule is definitely a lot better than November.
Yeah.
You
So
know?
it'll be interesting. I do think that Louisiana Tech, for those who care about Louisiana Tech should be really pretty solid this year. I think like a top 70 team in the country. So that game could be fun. But yeah, other than that, not sure how much we're gonna learn from LSU versus Louisiana Monroe on November 9th.
Yeah. No, that's just one of those games that, you don't want to come out and get off on the wrong foot. And then you don't want to be in that position come February and March to where you're looking back and you're counting victories. And then you go back and you look at that one that you lost at home, early in the season that where just people just didn't come out ready to play. And, that's the last thing that you want to do early, when you open up against, some cupcakes like that.
Yeah, or even win by like 2 or 3. Like even if you barely win, it doesn't look good.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, he had a
especially with the NET rankings and stuff, and
yep.
the differential and all that good stuff,
All
man.
these advanced stats nowadays. But yeah, that's all I got for the basketball team. You got anything else?
No, man, just excited,
Oh man.
excited for it to get here and stuff. And
Yep.
like I said, it's going to be a fun season. Yeah, it's
Yep.
going to be a fun season, and hopefully it's one that lasts a little bit longer than Athlon Sports picked LSU to go one and done in the tourney.
Mm,
So hopefully,
we'll see.
hopefully that bracketology X
Yeah.
pick is not correct.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to see. Obviously a lot of new pieces there, so we'll have y'all covered. We've done a lot of basketball preview content on the site already to this point, whether it's Sonny, Shay, Billy, and myself. So check that out. If you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to subscribe, leave a like, comment, share. If you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, feel free to follow us, leave us a rating and review. Check out our board VIP if you're a VIP. If you're not a VIP, check out our offers. I believe we're at 30% off for an annual subscription and $1 for the first month. And obviously, this is a very busy month. So if you want to use that $1, you can go ahead and check that out. But yeah, that's all we have for y'all today. Thank y'all for joining us. For Sunny Ship, I'm Matthew Brune, and we'll talk to y'all later.